Guys, December is finally here, and I have been excited about this box since way at the beginning of last year. So this box this month is going to be acrylic ornaments or gift tags, however you want to use them. And so I'm going to show you some tips for writing on a slick surface like this and some ways to do it. Let's do a quick glance at our workbook. So we have got some samples for the ornaments. This is going to be nice because you can just set your ornament over top and trace if you like that design. I tried to throw in, so this is from Queena. She did these samples here, and she is our acrylic supplier as well. And then I threw in just a whole bunch of different designs. So hopefully there's enough to pick, you know, some gift tags or to turn it into ornaments, however you want to do. My papers here were clearly out of order. Here is Queena's exemplar, a very modern, just kind of flowy, free-flowing style. And then our quote for this month, "Be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire." And this is the style that I did, just a little diagonal and your blank practice sheet, and then a piece of watercolor paper. Okay, so we are just going to get right to it. If you like to keep your exemplar clean, you could put this in a sheet protector before you write over top of it, or you can just write directly on top and kind of practice Queena's style. I grabbed a piece of tracing paper. So I kind of like to just, when I'm learning a new script, whether I am learning a classical script or maybe another artist's style like I'm doing here. Either way, I just kind of like to get a feel for it first. That's just the route I usually take. If you're doing more traditional calligraphy, they're going to break it down a lot step by step. But especially in modern calligraphy, this was where I got my start. And it was just a lot of looking at other artists' style and determining kind of how they made their letters, what pieces were the same in them, what made them unique. And so you kind of start picking out different little factors within the letters. So for example, you can see here that Queena does these loops, and you'll find that in the G, very loopy, and then down in the Y, and then the Z. So you look for areas that are consistent so you can create an alphabet or a set of letters that is consistent. And then her M is this very unique style M, but then that's going to translate to the N as well. So you have an M and an N, and that's going to be tricky for me to do. M and N. So a very unique modern style there, but you can see how they relate. And then you can also look at the entrance strokes to your letters. So just kind of a slant into your letters on the capitals and your entrant strokes. So that's just one way I kind of analyze my exemplars and scripts when I am studying a new set of letters. So go ahead and do your practicing. There is a blank practice sheet if you want to use that. If you have a light pad, you could also use a light pad. So I just started with my pencil for practice. If you're ready to try the pointed pen and you haven't before, I'm going to teach you just a little bit about pointed pens right now. Okay, so there are oblique holders and there are straight holders. This is an oblique holder. It has a flange that's coming out to the left that's going to hold my nib at a slant. Because traditional scripts are going to write at a certain slant angle, maybe 55 degrees. And so that is going to hold your nib at a slant. Because we went with a modern script for December, we're going to go with a straight holder. It allows you to really just focus on those free-forming letters rather than the strict rules and guidelines of, say, copperplate or spencerium. So we're going to be using a straight holder, and for that reason, there's not a lot to worry about with setup as there is with an oblique. With an oblique holder, you know, you're checking that your nib is inserted all the way to line up properly, but we're not going to get into that. We're just going to talk about this nib and the holder. So let me zoom in here. Okay, there is your nib, and then it is going to be a G series nibs. They're either going to be made by Tachikawa or Nikko. So when I say a G series nib, those are always beginner friendly nibs. This is the vent hole or the reservoir and the shoulder. And then when you add pressure, you can see, let's see if I can get that, the two tines spread apart. And then your body here that you insert into the holder. So with a straight holder, it's pretty simple. Just here in that circle, you're going to insert it like this, right in that area there. And then you're just going to hold it so that the vent hole faces towards the ceiling, so that when I'm holding it, you can see the vent hole facing up. Now, before you can use a nib, it comes from the manufacturer with a layer of like oils on it so that it doesn't rust. So you'll want to wipe this clean. Some people will use a potato. I know it sounds crazy, but the starches in the potato will remove the oils. Some people will run it through a flame, use their saliva, maybe spray a little Windex. If you're having a lot of problems, you can do any or all of those things. Usually just a wet wipe or a wet paper towel will do the trick for me. So I usually clean it and then put it into the holder. And then because we use our fingers to put it in the holder, and I'm just pushing that in till it's snug. We're reintroducing oils back onto it. So I usually just put it in and then wipe it off again. So usually the wipe will do the trick for me. Now, if you want to practice your letters here with the pen and the ink, go ahead and go for it. I have included a black, green, and red in your kit this month. These are Dr. P.H. Martin's Spectralite, and we're using these because they are liquid acrylic. You can get Dr. P.H. Martin's in a variety. Let me show you. I stock some of the iridescent colors in the shop and then some of the India ink. So these are all Dr. P.H. Martin's. I went for the Spectralite because the liquid acrylic is going to be a bit more durable on the acrylic ornaments when you're writing on a slick surface. And just to kind of give you a little bit about Dr. P.H. Martin's, they're all light fast, which means they're not going to fade in the sunlight. Non-toxic, archival quality, and they're great. I love them. Those are a couple different lines of the Dr. P.H. Martin's. The iridescent works great for just your everyday inks. I like the Indie ink for my pens that need a little bit more watery type ink. It works great for glass dip pens, my ruling pens, those types of things, but it works fine for nibs too. So just a little rundown on inks there. Okay, so in your kit this month, we have the matte black, the ruby red, and the forest green to sample. And I just like being able to give you a sample because I know for me, I wanted to go out and try all of the inks when I first started, and I didn't know what I loved, and then I ended up spending a lot of money on full sets or full bottle, and I didn't really need it. So this allows you a little sample to test and see if you love it, and then if you do, you can go get some more. Okay, so when I am using a dip pen or a pointed pen, the reservoir or the vent hole, that's about where you want to dip it to because you want it to hold the ink. So okay, so I'm going to come up here, and the ink is, this is going to be glaring. Okay, so here's my ink. I'm just tilting it just a bit and dipping my nib in. And you can see that I dipped enough that there is not the gap in the vent hole. So I covered the vent hole or the reservoir, and it's nicely coating my nib. So if you've watched some of my other videos, I do show where it will bead up, kind of like when water hits oil and it gets really beaded up. That means the oil is not off your nib yet. So this is well coated. I do have another reference on my blog too of what the clean nib versus a brand new nib would look like. But this is well coated. The ink is going all around the nib, and so it is ready to use. I usually have a scratch paper handy that I just kind of make a few scratches on to make sure the ink is flowing. And then the basic principle, if you're brand new to pointed pen or even modern style calligraphy, is that when your hand naturally comes down, you're going to add pressure. And by adding pressure, you're releasing more ink. So let me zoom in here and see if I can show you that. Okay, so I'm doing this lowercase or minuscule I. I'm going to start at the top and pull down. So when I pull down, I'm going to add pressure so the ink comes out. Then when I'm going back up, I've released all my pressure so the tines are together. Let me do that a little bit smoother. So I'm pulling down, the ink flows out, releasing pressure, going up. Okay, I'm going to do it until the ink runs out. There we go. So you can see how the tines are spreading, the ink is releasing, and that's called railroading. That means I'm out of ink. And then you can see I'm releasing pressure and the tines go together. So pressure, down, release pressure, pressure, release. Okay, that was a really close up to just show you how you get thin and thick. So really quick, thin up, thick down, thin up, thick down is going to give you that appealing look where it's thick and thin lines. So let me show you a couple letters here. And so nibs, the reason that you want different style nibs is that depending on the size of your lettering that you're doing or the paper you're using or the project you're doing, the different nibs are going to have different flexibility and kind of a sharper tip on the tines. Oops, I could add a little more pressure there. There we go. So I was saying your different nibs are going to be more flexible and release more ink or less depending on how they're made. So some people prefer more flexible nibs. I'm pretty heavy-handed, so I usually reach for a more stiff nib because I'm pretty heavy-handed. And so I'm already adding a lot of pressure. So just a little bit about nibs. Once you have done a lot of practicing or you feel like you are ready to move on to the project, I like to clean my nib, of course, during practice. You know, every page or so. I should probably clean it more than I do, but once it starts getting kind of gummed up and not flowing freely, you'll know it's time to clean it. And then obviously if you're switching colors, you'll want to clean it. And if I'm working on a final piece, I'll clean it much more. But when I'm practicing, I just kind of get in the groove and forget to clean it. But when you're done for the day or done with your practice, you'll definitely want to clean it, and then you can remove it from the holder and store it like in a tin or something like that. I always end up leaving mine in the holder, but that can lead to the nib getting corroded inside the holder. So I do recommend taking it out and storing it if you're done. And then if you're ready to move on, we'll just leave that cleaned and then grab our project page. Okay, so you have several acrylic pieces in your box this month, I have already removed the protective layer because I was photographing the box. But here's one I was using for a project. And you just have to get that top layer off. And I will often leave the back piece and then just do the top if I am worried about scratching the back. But you will learn to do however feels comfortable to you. You can leave one side of the protective wrapping on so that it doesn't get scratched. This is a matte acrylic, so it looks a little bit different than what's in your box. But each piece is going to have those two protective layers, so you're going to want to pull at least that top layer off. And then you are ready to start with your designs. So I have pulled out Queena's here that you can trace, and mine here that you can trace. And you don't have to do our designs, obviously. You could draw your own designs on a sheet of paper and sketch them. Maybe if you are working on some neighbor gifts, you could kind of work on your layout and see what kind of design you wanted. And then that's what I love about acrylic, is that you can just really trace and fine-tune your design. So if you want to draw your own designs, feel free, go ahead and go for it. And I would love to see what you come up with. I'm just going to use what we have here for the sake of the video. Okay, so I have grabbed just this ornament bauble, and I'm just going to use, I think, this piece on earth here. So before we get started, I want to tell you that this acrylic is possibly going to be, what's the word? Frustrating for you. The reason I say that is because it's very slippery. When you're writing on paper, your nib has something to kind of stick to. But when you're writing on glass, or I do the agate geode slices a lot, when you're writing on those or acrylic, it's easy for your nib to slip and for the ink to blob out. So my biggest recommendation for working on acrylic is a very light hand. And so for me, that means I have to move a lot faster, because if I slow down, the ink tends to blob. So there's my little tidbit before we get going. But I think we'll just go and share kind of some troubleshooting as we go. I think I want to use the red so that it shows up in the video. And then adjust your page to where you're comfortable. I just dipped it to that reservoir and kind of wiped the excess off. And then I can go up to my scratch paper and just do 2 little scratches there until it's flowing, and then I'm ready. So the other thing is that you want to avoid getting your finger oils on the acrylic so that it doesn't bead up. So if you see right here, the ink beaded up because I have been handling these acrylic pieces for all the photographs and everything. So I would probably want to clean my pieces first. And if you work pretty quickly, these can clean off, but the acrylic ink is going to dry well enough that once it's dried, you would probably need rubbing alcohol to really get it off. See, so a quick wipe didn't get it completely off, but I'll give it a good rub and kind of wipe those fingerprints off of there. You do have to be careful because the nib can, let's see if you can see this, the nib can scratch the acrylic. So you want to be really sure about your design since I'm still using the same design, I just wanted to clean those oils off. It's going to be fine, but you want to be sure of your design because the acrylic can scratch. So I've kind of polished that. I'm going to try not to touch it, and we'll try this again. And that's adhering much nicer. So I don't really have to add as much pressure as I do with nib on paper because, like I said, the acrylic is just very slippery, very slick surface. Okay, so there you have it, Peace on Earth, and it's still pretty wet. These are going to take a little while to dry for sure. If you want to touch anything up, like this little, let's see if I can show you here, this little upstroke kind of bubbled here. So yeah, once you take off that protective layer, make sure you're ready so that you don't get your finger oils all over it. I could have grabbed some Windex too to clean it a little bit better if necessary, but there we go. So I'm just going to set that to the side, and I think I'll do one more red one. Let's do From Me to You. I'm kind of turning it at an angle. And I had my finger oils all over this one again. I forgot to clean it. But hopefully, once you took your protective wrapping off, you were ready to go. So I'm going to have to do a second one on this or clean it because my fingerprints were all over it. I will not forget on the next one. Okay, and then I'm going to clean my nib and use a different color for you. And that red it's the perfect Christmas red. But I'm going to show you a little fun trick that you can do with acrylic also to make the colors kind of pop. I'm going to grab, let's do this hexagon here. And I might hop over here in case you are doing some for New Year's. Maybe you tie these on a gift, or I know some people have like a New Year's tree. I'm always ready to take my tree down as soon as Christmas is over, because we get like a real tree, and usually it's ready to come down. But look, I forgot to get the fingerprints off again. But anyways, I know some people do a New Year's tree. Heck, I think some people even leave it up all year round. Whatever brings you joy, makes you happy, you go for it. So I'm just kind of mixing a block type print here with a script. And if you want thicker lines, just slow down a little bit. If you want thinner lines, speed up just a little bit, because this, like I said, this acrylic is so slippery. It's easy to get blobs. And I know a lot of you have seen the agate slices I work on. See, so this is really blobby. I would probably wipe this off really quick and redo it, but I'm not going to, because and then maybe you want to put the year in. And then definitely set this to the side to dry. Okay, I'm going to hop up here. Oh, I'm going to clean my fingerprints off of it first. So lately I have actually been wearing gloves also. So if you have a pair of gloves that don't really like restrict your finger movement, you could use those. And then I can use nib and ink also on like a Christmas bauble, like a glass bauble. And the matte ones work really nice because it gives just a little bit of texture for the nib to adhere to. Okay. That one's probably going to need a second layer as well. I took so many pictures of this box. I just had my fingerprints everywhere. So learn from me, don't take that protective wrapper off until you are ready to write. Okay, and then let's see, we haven't used green yet, so I'll do a green. And then hopefully you can see kind of how nice this is to be able to trace if you're not feeling comfortable, or to really just get your own design just how you want it. I'm going to use this one, and it's a little bit big for the shape, but I could turn it or just kind of use it as a guide, which is what I'm going to do. So again, I dipped just past that reservoir. And if you have any other inks of your own, the iridescent would work really well on these, the metallic ones, because it gives a little grit in the ink to kind of stick. So I just have had to go back and do a tiny, kind of like a second layer on these. which is fine. Okay, I'm going to set this one to the side and see if those red ones are dry yet. Okay, so the red is dry, and this is why I did the liquid acrylic, because it won't wipe off. Now you won't be able to use like the watercolor paints or any of the handmade inks on here. It will not be permanent, but will be permanent on a slick surface. Now if I got really feisty, it would probably scratch off. Or if I grabbed some rubbing alcohol and worked really hard, it would come off. But it's going to be durable enough that you can hang it on your tree or gift it, you know, on a gift box or wherever you're going to use it. So you have several pieces of velvet ribbon to add to your ornaments. And you could just tie a regular tie. I'm going to flip this over so you can see. So you could just tie a regular tie, or I kind of like to tie a tie, and then if you have enough, you could tie a little bow. You probably don't, because I cut all of these the same length, but I like to sometimes move the tie down with the ornament so that you hang it on the loop. And grab my scissors. There's just a little way to kind of dress it up. And so there you have your ornament. Okay, before I move on from ornaments, let's kind of just look at what we've got here. I want to show you, you can see how nice these kind of pop. Some of them are still drying on the white background. So I wanted to show you, if you just had some regular craft acrylic, white, or any color really, but I'm just going to show you with the white how you can just add a background and it adds a completely different effect. I didn't include this in your box this month because I wanted to have you a couple different colors of inks, but I'm sure a lot of you have white craft paint. But so now that you've put your lettering on, so I do this step last because I want to be able to trace the lettering through. So peel that second protective layer off if you haven't already, and then you can just paint a background on the back. And I like to see the brush strokes personally, so it would look kind of like that. But you can add, you know, another layer if you want. You can add a different color, gold, if you like that. Or you could paint it completely. I could go really thick and add a nice thick layer so that it shines through. But again, these are just optional steps, but you might like this, or if you have, you know, a certain color tree or something you're doing, then you could paint the whole background for it to shine through. So if you want to go a little bit extra, you could add like a color to the back. I kind of like how this turned out a little bit rustic because I didn't do a second coat to thin out those calligraphy lines, but yeah, I just a style thing. And then, of course, I'm being impatient, and I picked it up before it was dried. But to give you just an idea, I think that's just a really pretty ornament. And gift tags. So super fun. I'm going to show you one other way that you can kind of add something to it. So this one I need to touch up the lines on the green, which, well, I don't want it to be wet. So I'm going to show you some gold leafing, and it's really messy, but it's really pretty. So this kit that I bought was the Speedball kit. I'll link it, but again, this is just extra. There's an adhesive and a sealer, and it comes with gold leaf sheets. You can buy it in flakes, but I just want to show you how this looks on acrylic. So I am just going to dip my brush the tiniest bit. Like, it does not take much. And I could add some adhesive both on the front and the back. And really it's just, I just like to go kind of like in a organic, nothing calculated, but the gold just adds a nice touch. And then if I had a gold sheet, I could use a gold sheet, but since I have these little flakes handy, I'm just going to use some of them. And I did see some flakes at our local dollar store here, which I thought was surprising, like a rose gold and a silver and gold flakes. So maybe check your dollar store, and then you could just use like some Mod Podge to stick them on. But just some fun extra ways to add something to your acrylic. And so with gold leaf, I kind of just stick it on. You can't really be like conservative with this. You just have to go for it. This is pretty much found in like any craft stores. Online. Again, I'll link it if you think you want to try it, if you want to brave the mess. So I just do kind of this organic textured look. I could, you can paint like a whole surface and get a full gold sheet. So like I did full gold sheet around like a wine bottle. Actually, I'll just show you what it looks like. Since we're here, I'll just show you that you can buy, it comes in sheets. And so let me zoom out here. Okay, so there we go. So yeah, it comes in sheets. So if you wanted to gold foil a whole piece of acrylic, you could put your adhesive down, and then it comes in sheets like this. And you pull the sheet off, and then brush off the excess. So when I do a project, I just brush the scraps into this little bucket. That's where they come from, so that I can use them on little pieces like this. And then maybe if I want to put some, I'll just show you what it looks like. Maybe I want to do all across the back. And oh, see, it's like super thin tin foil. But basically, you just stick it down. And you kind of, for that, I should have let it dry just a minute before I brush off the excess. But essentially, you just are going to let it dry and then brush away the excess. anyway, so there's just a little way of how you can add some extra to your acrylic with either painting it or adding gold foil. I liked it just on the edges before I put the back on, but I just wanted to show you how you can use a square to cover a whole space. And then even just on here, like, okay, we're gonna go extra because I have all the supplies out, but I'm just kind of gonna go around the edge just a tiny bit. And just a couple pieces just look nice. You don't have to use a lot. And see what I mean? It just sticks to everything. And then I usually have a dry brush handy. That can kind of brush the excess away. A soft brush. Anyways, there's just some fun bonus ideas if you like gold or some color to add to your acrylic. Okay, and then the last piece in our kit this month is our monthly quote. And so inside your kits this month, or if you're a brand new subscriber or if you've been around, you have a silver tin now to collect your own watercolors in. I'm excited to have you have a place to collect them all. I realized, I think this is all of them from this year. I was like, okay, if I'm getting this many, there's some of you that have been here since the beginning as well that are getting this many. But this month we have a red wine and a bronze and a liquid silver. I couldn't go without doing some metallics for the holiday box. So I'm just going to be recreating this quote that I included. Be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. Again, you could use tracing paper to practice. You could use a light pad to put it underneath and trace right over top if you're not comfortable freehanding yourself yet. I think I'm just going to use a pencil and kind of sketch it so you can see the process of doing that. When I made the quote, I just kind of was like, oh, we haven't done like an angled style yet. So I just wanted to show you how you could do different layouts, which is the purpose of the quote, not only to just give you like an inspiring quote, but also to show you how you can lay out different words and lines. Okay, so something like that. And then I want to show you, since if you're brand new, the liquid ink is going to be ready to go. You are just going to take it out. If you want to use this with the paintbrush or a different tool you have of your own, that is totally fine. This, I'm just going to use my dropper and drop some on the back of my nib. And then let me zoom in so you can see. And again, pressure down, light pressure up. So this is very shimmery, a really nice silver for the holidays. It's going to show up nice on dark paper as well. And then if you want to just dip it directly in the vial, I just kind of did that. So whatever works for you. My vial's a little bit emptier than yours because I think I was filling everyone else's up first. But just about like that is what you need. Okay, and then if you want to use the trays, it's just going to be just like watercolor. I kind of add a drop or two to just activate it. a drop or two to just kind of get it soaking. And then I just take a brush, and this is just what I had handy, actually the same brush that was in the box last month, but in your welcome kit I included another brush so that you have it handy always, so that you can put the ink on the back. I'm just going to swirl it around, kind of get it activated, and then all you have to do, just like with the liquid, you just drop it on. So you've got about that much. I'm just going to put these next to each other so you can kind of compare the colors. And then this is like a copper or bronze, which I was looking at our colors and I was like, we've done a lot of greens this year, so I was trying to just not do just red and green. So I thought this would be a good wintry one. Okay, and so then that kind of shows you the different colors. And I just completely went over my draft, but I'm going to go ahead and write it out in this red, I think, and then add some silver and bronze highlights. So I noticed that this straight holder has been a bit hard for me to write with this evening. I think I am so used to writing with a oblique holder that I just felt really limited with that straight holder. So I was a lot smaller than the example page. So in that case, I would probably cut my page in half and make 2 quotes. But I noticed that my range of motion with the straight holder was way off compared to my range of motion with the oblique holder. And it's just because of the way you hold it. So to me, the oblique holder is more comfortable. If you're brand new to calligraphy or pointed pen, you are probably feeling the opposite because this is more like a pencil. Let me know what you think, because like you have to, if you hold it like a pencil upright, you're not going to get it flowing properly. You have to hold it at that angle, that 45-degree angle. So if you're having problems, let me know. I'll help you troubleshoot. But it's nice to try them both the oblique holder and straight holder. And if you're lefty, you probably like the straight holder. That seems to be the consensus. So I'm just going to go in now. And I was going to add just some silver touches, just for some shimmer, because we all love shimmer. Okay, and there we have it, our quote, our ornaments, our sample inks. Hopefully you had an enjoyable time. I think this was a really fun box and maybe a little more approachable with the acrylic being able to trace over the design. So let me know what you think. Tag us and show us the ornaments or the gift tags you made. Oh, I did want to note, if you feel like you want to put a layer of like Mod Podge or sealer over this, it's not going to hurt anything. It might show up like your brush streaks in the acrylic if it's still clear. That's the only thing I like with the sealer. Sometimes it takes away. But like on this piece, I might go over it with like a sealer, but it's not necessary either. So anyway, show us what you do. Have fun with it. Happy holidays if you're celebrating. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And we will be back in January with a brand new, a little bit revised edition of our Simply Lettered box. Thanks, guys.